going on, guys? Matt at Middles Motorsports here. Another episode of Behind the Tune. On the dyno today, we have a C6 Corvette. So I'm going to turn the camera on here, and we'll take a look at what we got. 2011 Grand Sport. So this is a 6.2 LS3, and quite a few things done to this car. Really nice looking car, the black and red. One of my favorite color schemes on most cars, Camaros, Corvettes, and Mustangs. I really like black and red. So LS3, like I said, but this engine has been rebuilt with some stronger parts, and it has an A&A Supercharger kit on it. So it's got forged crank, forged rods, forged pistons. Compression is around 10:2:1. It's got a valve relief dish piston in it from stock flat top. A&A kit, I believe that's a Ti trim Vortech. He does have the 8-rib upgrade. It's got the, I think it does have the standard intercooler. Headers, obviously it's got long tube headers on it, 3-inch exhaust on it. I think it still has the stock mufflers on it. And it has the A&A Fuel System on it. So pretty stout little build here. Flex fuel. I believe he's got FIC 1000s or 1200s from what I remember. I know I wrote this tune up a little while ago because we've been kind of working with this guy for a while, and I tuned this car when it was normally aspirated last year, and so we had kind of the stuff he had done before was overlapping. So he had done the cam, so it does have a cam in it. I probably should mention that, and it's got Texas Speed cam in it, and off the top of my head, and I apologize, guys, and I can't remember which cam it's got in it. But I believe it is a normally aspirated cam, but it's doing pretty well for this combination. But obviously it does have a cam, so it's got related valve train, valve springs, push rods, rocker trunnions. Still think it has LS7 style lifters in it. Nothing crazy on the lifters. It does have LS9 Headgaskets. So he set it up for boost when he built the motor. He did it right. And yeah, so we're getting this thing dialed in. So again, flex fuel. I did most of the flex fuel tuning, or the pump gas tuning prior, and so today I'm doing the E85 portion of this. And he's going to run this car on ethanol most of the time. He said maybe in emergency situations he's going to he'd have to put some pump gas in it, gasoline in it, but he's like 99% of the time he said he's going to have E85 in it. So I'm kind of taking note of that for the tune. So where we're at so far. Kind of some of my working runs, just hitting over 800 horsepower. We got hit with some hot, humid weather today, and my intake air temps are climbing kind of high towards the top end. Don't know if it's just not enough airflow through my fans there. I got two of those kind of carpet fans here. You've seen these if you guys watch our channel. I got this cart with 4 of these Grizzly carpet fans, and these things move a lot of air. But I'm still seeing some intake air temps up in the 140s at the top of the pull up here. And we'll go over that when we look at the data log. I'll kind of show you what's going on with that. But this is where we're at so far. Those superchargers aren't really going to make... I mean, they're probably good for 850 to 900 wheel. But, which I think we'd see maybe another 20 or 30 horsepower at the tires if we had a nice, cool, dry day. But unfortunately, it's just hot and humid, and with those elevated intake temps, we're just kind of losing some power up top. So, but it is what it is. 800 wheels, nothing to sneeze at on this car. On a C6 Corvette, it's going to be for a fast car. So this is a stick shift car. This is a manual trans. He does have a clutch in it also. Like I said, he's got quite a few things done to this car. So let's do one more pull. I'm not going to change anything with the tune-up on this last pull. I did let the car cool off here for about 30 minutes with the fans on it. I just want to see what a cooler run, maybe if I could try to get the IATs down a little bit. I just don't really think I'm going to because, it's almost 90 degrees right now, and I'm starting the dyno pulls at 90 degrees for the intake air temp. The intake air temp is being read off the mass airflow sensor right before the throttle body, so that's after the intercooler. And it is what it is. I'm just gaining 50 degrees IAT throughout the pull. And again, I'll show you guys that on the log. But let's put the camera down, set it down over there in the corner, and we'll do another pull on this thing, and then we'll take a look at the data log. So we didn't pick anything up. I think that run was actually even hotter just because it's gotten hotter towards the end of the day here. Peak power was the same, but mid-range we lost because my starting temperatures were actually higher on the blue run than they were on the red run. Just because the end of the day here, again, summertime, and the shop is just hot and sticky right now. So, but I'm happy with that. Over 800 wheel, that was kind of the goal for this thing. That's what he was after, and that's where I thought we would, that's right about where I thought we'd be. We are pretty much at the reason why we're not trying to push this harder and trying to just completely lean on the blower harder is up at 7,000 RPM, we are right at Vortech's recommended impeller speed with the pulley combination he has on this thing. We're right there. So I got the limiter in at 7. I'm cutting the runs a little short just because it's rolling off and there's no reason to beat the equipment up. You know, we don't have to. It's peaking at, just at past 65, 6,600. So, but again, at 7,000, we are up right about at Vortech's recommended supercharger speed with the pulleys he's got on it. So we really can't pulley it any more than this. This is pretty much it. So we'll look at the timing. Timing, I'm in, kind of the mid-upper teens. I was playing with the timing quite a bit on those other pulls. The beginning of the video where you see I had those 3 or 4 runs up. That was me just kind of playing with the timing a little bit. And I'm to the point where another degree of timing is 3 horsepower. So there's really no point. When I get to that point and I add a degree, it picks up like 3 wheel, I'll usually just drop the degree back out of it because there's no point in, 3 horsepower. Because from there, in my experience of dyno tuning cars for the past 10, 15 years, when you get to that point and then you go another degree, you're just going to pick up nothing. So I like having it maybe a degree back from true MBT just in case, just a little margin of error there. I like having that little bit of margin of error. So you can kind of see typical centrifugal power band, a little softer on the bottom end versus a PD style car like a Whipple, a Screw, or like a Magnuson, like a TVS style rotor, where they make a little bit more, obviously fatter down here. But I really think that the centrifugal blowers match really good with these Corvettes, the C6, C5, C6 Vettes, because they're a light car, and a lot of the times these guys cruise around on a street tire. This does have a 888R on it, Toyo, so it's got a sticky tire on it, but a lot of the times there's just it can be a little too much down on the bottom end. This thing is going to be an absolute monster up in the top. This car should be pretty quick. 6130, I would think he's going to be well into the 5s with this thing. So, yeah, this is looking really good. I'm happy with where we're at with this one. Data log wise, we'll jump in the car here. Hopefully my laptop doesn't die because it's just about to, but we should have enough here to take a look at what we got going on here. So, boost. We are just touching about 14 pounds, 13 and a half, 14, just at the top. Again, we're turning the blower as hard as we can turn it. We can't turn it anymore. From here, he'd have to go to a YSI setup, which A&A makes a kit for those. I believe the YSI, you can get a billet YSI that'll directly replace the T-trim that's on this thing. Timing, like I said, I'm rolling the timing down, so that's kind of this blue line here. I'm having to roll this off a little bit because the intake air temps. So I was talking about intake air temps. I'm starting at 91, and you can see, I'll try to, towards the top end, they just are like, I'm starting at 91. I'll start at the beginning. I'll kind of just roll this slowly. So you can kind of see 2,500 RPM, still 91, 29, 3, starting to pick up a little bit, 95, not too bad. 100 at 4,500, but you can see about 5,000 RPM they really just start to take off as the blower starts making more and more boost. And between 6,000 RPM is 122 and 6,800 RPM, I'm picking up, just in that last 1,000 RPM, I'm picking up 20 degrees of intake temp. So on E85, we don't have to pull as much timing with intake air temp. Basically, if you guys don't really dabble in tuning too much, as intake air temps rise above a certain point, you have to start pulling timing out, just because the hotter air creates a faster burn, and obviously the air is less dense, but because it's hotter, the fuel vaporizes easier and it's more volatile, and typically the burn is a little faster, so you can't put as much timing into it. Even on 85, where you're really not going to have any knock, you just can't. What ends up happening is if you're too aggressive on the timing when the intake air temps start skyrocketing like that, you can actually just end up beating the bearings out of the thing. So I'm very, again, a street car like this that's going to be driven in all sorts of different temperatures and different dynamic situations. I'm going to be conservative with it. So I do have to pull timing as the intake air temps climb. Basically, how I set this car up, because I didn't want it to be a huge jump in timing, though, when he races it like on a cold, let's say he's out on a cool night in Mexico, and, you know, it's 60 degrees, 55, 60 degrees. The intake air temps are going to be way colder than this. They're going to be, you know, on the street, we could be 40 degrees less. So I didn't want it to have 21 degrees of timing. So that table is basically this table. There's some multipliers that modify this table, but you can kind of see how I have this set up. This is already moderately aggressive as far as how much it's pulling. It's not pulling very much, but again, I kind of tailored this for the E85, which you can be a little softer on pulling timing. Versus like a pump gas, I'd probably start pulling timing at like 113 degrees and maybe be pulling like 4, maybe 5 degrees at the top of where we're seeing, and we're seeing 100, you know. So this table's pulling about 2.5 degrees. So basically what will happen is on a colder night from here, if he's out in cooler temperatures, and there's my battery, but we still got some time here, hopefully, is the air mass will be higher. So we're seeing, you know, 178, 180 there. So we're touching, you know, but as the air mass climbs on the timing table, we're going to, you know, as we go higher in air mass down this way, the timing is going to drop. So you can see from 161, 1.61 air mass to 1.85 air mass, so on a hot day, it's going to run a little more timing, but the ITs are going to be higher, so it's going to pull that timing back out. On a colder day or colder evening, it's going to run less timing on this table because as the air cools off, we'll see higher air masses, and but the intake air temp is not going to be pulling as much. So we're going to be about the same. I didn't want this thing to be running. I just don't want it to run too much timing, and you know, he just put a lot of money into this thing, and I want it to be somewhat conservative. I know he's out having fun on the streets, and he wants it to be fast, but there's a limit to where we want it to also live. So that's about where it was happy with having, you know, low 20s down here. And then obviously as the boost really ramps in towards the top, I'm actually pulling timing out. So that's kind of counterintuitive to some of the other stuff that maybe you've seen me tune or other people tune where you maybe ramp timing in. It's just because we're picking up so much boost and so much cylinder pressure over the course of as it revs out. The centrifugal stuff tunes a little differently. It's typically what you'll see, because you can see down here at 2,500 RPM, we have like 1.5 pounds of boost. There's really hardly any boost, maybe 2 pounds of boost there. And, you know, 4,000 RPM, we're at 6 to 7 pounds. So it's but up at the top, it's about 14 pounds. So it's gaining quite a bit of boost as we RPM it. And again, that's how centrifugal blowers work. So, yeah, the screen just dimmed down. Air fuel. Now, this is still a mass airflow car, and when you take these mass airflow sensors from GM, the blade style, the LS3, LS7 style that this has, and you go from sucking air across it to blowing air across it, the signal will get a little bit noisy. You could tune this car speed density. Typically, with these kind of sub 20 pound of boost type of deals, they still work okay in blow through format. Once you start getting into the 1,000 wheel, you really just got to go speed density. This car still, for me, falls under the realm of where the mass airflow sensor is still acceptable. The only little bit of a downside to it is you can see how jagged this kind of purplish, whatever you want to call that light purple line, that lavender line. Because the mass airflow sensor is a little dirty, you can then see the calculated air mass is kind of jagged, and you can kind of see that in the timing. So you end up with an injector pulse with that kind of moves around a little bit, and you end up with an air fuel that kind of moves around, so you can kind of see how jagged this is. So what you end up doing on these things is you kind of got to take the average as this thing kind of moves around on the air fuel. You got to kind of take the average of it. So you never really want to see it. You're going to have it move around. That's just how it is. You can screw with the MAF curve all you want. It's always going to have kind of these peaks and valleys to it. So I basically tune it so as I'm scrolling across here, you can see where it's kind of running in between that 0.77. And sometimes it's jumping up. I really am trying to keep it. The highest I'm going to see is, there's a quick blip at the very top at 0.82, but that's literally like maybe just a little 50 RPM. So I'm not worried about that. So you can kind of see it's moving around. Basically, I try to keep it in between, that's probably the richest, but that's a short little burst of it too. So you can see and again, this is in lambda. So we're kind of varying between probably 11.2 on average to 11.6. And versus if you leaned it out, we may pick up a little power if I leaned it out a little more, but then some of these peaks would be 12 to 1 to 1, which I don't want to see. It's too lean for me. So I'm kind of trying to average it so it's in that mid 11 zone. Again, this car is going to get beat on, and I want it to be conservative enough so he can beat on it and enjoy it for a long time without having to worry about engine longevity. Even though it's a forged engine, you can still hurt these things if you're too greedy on them. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of how I worked this one up. He's got the fuel system. He's got bigger injectors. Obviously, we're still well within the range on the injector pulse width. We're probably 65-70% on those. We got plenty of pulse width there. Kind of the only concern in this car is the intake air temps. And I'm going to go take it out on the street tomorrow and maybe do a couple little rips in it and see what these look like as I got actual road air and vehicle speed blown across an air cooler. Hopefully I'm not seeing these types of intake air temps. But I'll have that discussion with him. I'll discussion with him, and I'll show him what's going on with this, and maybe suggest, if there is an intercooler upgrade, maybe. Again, we're sitting here static on the dyno, and this is kind of typical. I've seen this before with Pro Chargers on Camaros and Mustangs, and when you're sitting on the dyno, and even those fans are blowing a lot of air, it's still not simulating what you're doing as you're going 60, 80, 100, 120 miles an hour in Mexico or on a track where the intercooler is going to be a little more effective with a lot more air, getting forced across it. So unfortunately for the dyno, that just makes our dyno number maybe a smidge low. Like I said, I think on a cold day in the shop, if we were maybe a fall or spring day and we were 50 degrees in the shop, I think we'd be at that 820, maybe 830 mark, just because how much cooler. If we were to drop these intake air temps 50 degrees, we'd probably be picking up, about 5%. So I typically go by the mantra of every 10 degrees of intake temp, regardless of timing, just the actual temperature is about 1% of horsepower. So 50 degrees, 5%, 800 horsepower, that's probably roughly about 30 at the wheels. So yeah, but again, for what we're seeing here, I'm happy with the number. I'm happy we hit that 800 mark. So that's going to wrap up the dyno session on this Corvette, guys. I'm going to jump out here. We'll take one more look at that graph. So you guys have jumped ahead to the end of the video, so you can maybe quick see it here. Try to get that whole thing in the frame. So yeah, looking really good. So appreciate you guys watching our channel. And again, always check back on our socials for all the other stuff we got going on here at the shop. And appreciate you guys watching. Talk to you guys later.